All right. Thank you for being here today and discussing with me about the Title IX. So to start, I would say excluded, denied, and subjected to discrimination. Let's discuss those words in today's civil law. What do they mean and how are they important?
Yeah, I think in the history of sports for girls and women, they mean a whole lot, right? I think the women that came before us, our parents, grandparents, felt that more than anyone can now. So when student athletes now think about Title IX and read those words, it might not mean as much, right? It may not be something that they have felt directly. And so it's really in honor of those that came before us, I think, that we continue to battle and create opportunities for the women that come behind us.
For sure, the history is what makes today in the present. But what does Title IX mean to you?
I would say for me it means opportunity and then protection of that opportunity. To Amanda's point, I'm one of the benefactors of what has come before, the history of the women that have gotten us to have these opportunities, and certainly so appreciative of Title IX to make sure that we continue to have those opportunities, that there's laws in place, that there's places to go if you are denied. So certainly very thankful to all those women before us.
Yeah, and when you say denied and subject to discrimination, like that was more than just like not being able to play sports, which is important to all of us, but that was also like you could be fired from your job or, just all sorts. It was a lot more going on in the world, earlier 50 years ago than today. But.
Yeah, for sure. And what role do you play in making sure that Milwaukee Athletics complies with Title IX?
Yeah, a lot of places tend to think that it's one person's job, right? Just like a lot of the roles that we play. But in reality, it's all of our job. And I don't mean just the women at this table, but all of us within athletics and those at the university to ensure that we're doing what we need to for our student athletes, both men and women, to provide an opportunity to compete. And doing that in an equitable way in whatever fashion that we can. So we do have some bit of formal process, and Cathy Litzau certainly leads that on our behalf, but it's not her job. So if you want to share a little bit what
we work so hard to make sure we provide all the resources that we can for our student athletes to be successful, but we do want to also make sure that we pause to make sure that we are providing them in an equitable way, right? So we will once a year through our athletic board and through our Equity Athletics Disclosure Act, or EADA.
Yep.
So we do have to submit to the NCAA all the financials of everything that we do. And we have an Equity and Inclusion Committee that reviews the work that is done. That's part of our athletic board, which is made up of faculty and staff. And they will provide comments, maybe criticisms. We've been really lucky in that honestly there aren't many criticisms because we have done a good job with that.
And based on your experience, do you think that women are well represented especially in the college scene?
I think here we are. We look at proportionality. That's one of the prongs that you can look at. So you look at what is the proportion of men and women at your university, and your athletic department should mirror that. And we are oftentimes right on that number, if not very, very close.
And since your time here at UWM, have you seen a progress in anything related to Title IX and, again, women's representation and resources being more out there for all student athletes?
Well, I think so. In my time, I think we've been working very hard to ensure that, as we said, all of our programs have opportunities to succeed, and We keep an eye on how we are competing against other programs at other institutions in every single sport. And women's sports are important to us, just as the men's sports are. So it is kind of interesting when we sit down and talk about department excellence. We don't really talk about the men and the women and how they're doing. I mean, sometimes it comes up just incidentally, but it isn't, it isn't more than just we want all of our programs to be able to be as competitive as they can, and allowing our head coaches to tell us what it is that they need to be successful is really important to that effort, again, for the women and the men. You've been here a bit longer than I have, Kathy, so if you have
Well, I'm proud to say that I think our women's sports have had the most success here at Milwaukee, and if we look at the Horizon League sports awards, it's called the McCafferty Trophy, and there's a combined men's and women's, but then there's a separate men's and a separate women's, and we've won the women's trophy many times. And so the success that our female athletes are able to have has been really wonderful to see.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I've been here 6 years, which is the shortest stint among this group. But that was one of the most impressive things to me, was how successful our women's programs have been. You obviously were on a runner-up team this year. Women's tennis, Avery was also on the runner-up team, and women's soccer has been killing it. Volleyball has won a championship, so it's been. We feel pretty good about what we've been able to provide to those programs in order to have those successes. So.
Good. And we have athletes like Serena Williams, Simone Biles, Allyson Felix, and Megan Rapinoe, who are strong, successful women in sports. Looking back, who were some of your role models growing up?
I thought about this question a little bit, and I'm, not that young or that old, but I feel like I still had a lot of male athlete not mentors, but role models looking up. But I do remember, being in high school and watching Diana Taurasi and Ruth Riley was on the Notre Dame basketball team, and just remember thinking I want to do that, and it's hard to imagine feeling like I wouldn't have that opportunity, right? And I was a senior in 1999, so I felt like if I wanted to play college basketball, that was going to be an opportunity for me, just because there's that many, participation opportunities out there. So I didn't play at their level, but I did play Division III basketball, so those were probably two for me. One kind of fun story before you guys go. I think it's funny now in today's day and age, like Megan Rapinoe, for example, I'd seen a tweet that even young boys are like a young boy had dressed up as her for Halloween. So it's cool that even young men are starting to see the successes of these women athletes and want to emulate them.
And do you think you had more male role models growing up because you were more exposed to males than females, versus now where it's more equal?
I would agree, yes. From an athletic standpoint, when I was kind of growing up, it was just the women's sports were really just emerging as being kind of their own value of success, right? So it was I watch it and I kind of follow it, but I'm still real big on whatever the Bucks team or whatever it might have been at the time, So where I feel today it's a lot more, they kind of have their own following and their own fans out there that are getting excited about them. The U.S. women's soccer team's a great example. I think the WNBA has had a lot of successes growing. Volleyball, we've seen nationally at the collegiate level have a lot more eyes on it. It's a bigger TV sport, I would say. You probably are watching a lot more of that these days.
Yeah, I would say for myself growing up, it was in the 70s when you had Billie Jean King, Chris Evert, Martina Navratilova, and so a lot of heavy tennis focus. So it was really just focused on one sport until you had the Olympics, right? And then it was my eyes were open to other sports. I didn't know much about the sport of volleyball. That became my passion, really until junior high school. And it was more just, again, through gym class, some various opportunities. But I was always provided the opportunity to compete in sports. And I would say that my role model was always my mom. And my mom was fortunate enough in the 50s and 60s to play basketball. She's one of the few. You often hear that there was no opportunity for a lot of women until the 70s. But she went to a Catholic school. And so they always gave opportunities to the girls. And so she tells a story of never once playing in a gym that wasn't sold out, that wasn't full. And then away games, they would always have buses that you could sign up for, and it would be like a rush to get to homeroom to sign up to be able to get on the bus to go to the away game. So she always felt like she had opportunity, so she made sure that I always had opportunity. And so really even like, thinking back of a child in the 70s and the 80s wasn't that far after, Title IX was enacted, and yet I felt like I always had lots of opportunity in gymnastics, soccer, basketball, volleyball, but again, that started later in school. But again, it was because of my mom and the opportunities that she had that she wanted to make sure I had them too.
It's nice to see from your example as a childhood and your mom's example how we are progressing towards a more equal goal. But would you say that the road ahead is still long?
Yeah, I do. I think we've got some momentum, right? And particularly now, what we've seen in very recent years around women's sports and some of the challenges and being vocal is not something that was been accepted in past years. It's 20 years ago it was, well, you're able to participate, so just go sit down and don't worry about it. And now we're able to say, as we saw last spring, women's basketball at the NCAA tournament, saying like, this isn't good enough, we want more. And so having that conversation on a broader scale is going to push us even further. I think some of the easy kind of things have been done, providing participation opportunities and setting up teams, and now some of the other elements that are out there that we haven't yet achieved. Professional sports organizations are coming to be. We're seeing elite level athletes in Olympics like never before on the women's side, and I think that'll continue to propel us. I'm very hopeful.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Is there anything you would like our student athletes to know?
I would like them to know that there's opportunity in many different ways to continue on in a career in athletics. I also, when I was a senior in college, my coach pulled me aside and said, what are your plans next? My undergrad was in English with a minor in business, and I honestly, my senior year said, I don't know. And he said, well, do you ever think about coaching? And I was like, coaching? Like it never even entered my mind that was something that I could do. So I think opportunity is just making sure that our student athletes know that there's lots of different career fields, right? You came in here and you said your degree's on marketing, and I said, how about athletics, right? Like oftentimes the student athlete just thinks it's about their competition, their participation, and don't think about the world around it. And so I think we need to do a better job, especially as women in this field, to let young female athletes know that this is something you can take and you can really grow into a very, very fulfilling career.
Yeah, I would agree with that. We're constantly kind of telling our student athletes, use your undergraduate experience as a resume builder, right? You've learned leadership skills, you've learned how to, manage your time and be a great teammate and things like that. So those are all skills that are going to help you when you're out in the real world, getting a job, that you were able to gain from your athletic participation opportunities, right? So don't sell yourself short, I guess, when you're out looking at jobs and careers. And Amanda and I always kind of use this analogy, like oftentimes women will see a job open and say, well, I only meet 2 or 3 of those criteria, so I don't know that I'm ready for it. Men don't necessarily have that same level of hesitation. So just kind of go after those things and know that you probably have the soft skills that you need to be successful.
I'll layer on to what Cathy Litzau said, because I never want to miss an opportunity to encourage girls and women to participate in a career in sports. I think it's so important. We are always looking for great, talented women in every position that we post, and it feels like we fall short in that candidate pool, no matter how much work we do. And I've had a couple of people locally, women who work in the Bucks organization, the Brewers organization, and some others in the city really would like to begin a career for girls and women in sport to raise awareness, because they have the same frustrations we do. they're always looking for good women, and so we're kind of like, well, we need to start the pipeline early. So maybe 8th graders and 11th graders and college students begin to think about what the possibilities are. Because I think a lot of women, maybe unlike girls, unlike boys, don't think about the possibilities, right? The sports isn't such a part of their lives, maybe, at least socially, the way that we're raised. So I think it's our responsibility to do that. And I'm happy to talk with anyone, male or female, about a career in sports because I think it's amazing and rewarding.
Thank you. Well, thank you for having this conversation with me and with all of us.
Thank
So
you.
before we're done, I do have a prop.
Oh.
So I talked about my mom.
Yeah.
So she played.
Okay.
This is her the high school picture of her. They had to wear dresses.
Oh, yeah.
Oh no, this might be college. Because one of the teams she played on, they had to wear black tights when they played because they couldn't let their legs show. So
Wow.
again, we've come a long way.
Yeah, that's
So-
really cool.
So this article was done about Title IX back in the early 90s. So a local newspaper interviewed myself and my mom.
That's
That's
awesome.
awesome.
Oh, thank you for
Thought I'd
sharing
share.
that. That's very cool.
Well, you need to show the picture of me, then the picture of my mom.
You did a great job.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Maybe you have a future in front of the camera.
Yeah.
All right.
It's an opportunity.
That's right.